Okay, hi everyone, welcome back to another session of Physiology of Sport and Exercise. Today we are diving into a topic that honestly all athletes and even weekend warriors should pay attention to. In this topic we are going to talk about detraining. Now I know the word sounds a bit negative, but don't worry, we'll walk through it, what it actually means, what happens inside your body when you stop training, and how to work around it smartly, right? So let's start going. Right. Let's start with the basics. What is detraining actually? All right. So detraining is basically the partial or complete loss of adaptations that your body built up from training. This happens when your training stimulus isn't enough anymore. Like when you take time off, reduce intensity too much, or just stop altogether. The key idea here is something we've all heard before: use it or lose it. You can refer to this part on the slide, it really sums it up. And get this, the training can start showing effects within just a few days to a couple of weeks. That is very fast, right? Okay, it doesn't just affect one area either. It hits your cardiovascular system, your metabolic process, and your neuromuscular system. So basically a little bit of everything. Okay, so now before we understand how detraining affects us, we've got to understand what we actually gain from training in the first place. Specifically in terms of the neuromuscular system, since we are talking about neuromuscular system in this chapter. When you train consistently, especially with resistance or explosive movements, your body becomes really efficient at recruiting motor units. These groups of muscle fibers controlled by a single motor neuron per se. Okay, you also get an increased neural drive, meaning your brain and nervous system are just better at sending fast, strong signals to your muscles. Right, you can see on the slide you also get a better rate of force development, okay, which is just fancy way of saying you can produce force more quickly, and overall your muscle learns to coordinate and synchronize better. That's why with training, movements feel smoother, stronger, and more powerful. Okay, so what happens when we stop training? Okay, let's flip the coin. With detraining, you start to lose all those cool neuromuscular benefits we just talked about. Okay, you'll see a drop in you'll see a drop in motor unit recruitment and a slower firing frequency. So your muscles aren't getting activated as efficiently as before. Right, one big one is a decrease in muscle fiber size, especially type 2 fibers, okay, which are your fast twitch power producing fibers. And yep, your neuromuscular system becomes less efficient. Okay, this can lead to noticeable reductions in strength and power. You'll also hear people say things like I feel off, or like my body's not responding like it used to. Okay, that's the part of muscle memory fading. Though the good news is with retraining, your body often remembers faster and can bounce back more quickly. Right, you can refer to the timeline chart here. This is super helpful. Okay, so the timeline of neuromuscular decline isn't just random. Okay, it tends to follow a pattern. Right, for the first 2 weeks, what will happen is you probably won't lose much strength. And if you do, it's mostly from neural changes, right? Not muscle loss. But after that, between 2 to 6 weeks, what will happen is the losers start to get real. We are talking about muscle size shrinking, strength going down, and neural control starting to slip. Okay, and if you go beyond 6 weeks, what will happen is that's when you see major muscle atrophy, and a noticeable drop in power output. So yeah, taking a few weeks off for a holiday, not a big deal, but extended time off, right? That's when the problem starts to show. Okay, so you can refer to the diagram here, the chart here, of how long will it take, for your strength to lose significantly. All right, so now let's be real. Okay, not everyone loses gains at the same rate. There are few important factors that affect how fast you detrain, and you can follow along with the list here. Okay, first your initial fitness level. Okay, your initial fitness level matter because athletes who are well trained tend to hang on to their gains longer, you know, which is good news for those putting in serious work prior. Okay, and then we're also talking about muscle fiber type. All right, fast twitch fibers like the ones used in sprinting or weightlifting tend to be lost faster than slow twitch endurance fibers. Okay, next one is age. Age also plays a role, you know. Okay, older adults unfortunately lose adaptations faster than younger ones. Okay, and then the type of training that you did, resistance training effects may differently compared to endurance, right? One more factor to consider is the difference between immobilization, you know, like or when you're injured, right? Passive rest and just reduced activity. Complete bed rest or being in a cast that leads too much faster detraining than simply taking it easy. Here's the good news though. Even if you do lose strength and power, the body has this amazing thing that we call muscle memory. So when you start training again, what will happen is retraining usually takes less time than your initial training. It's like your nervous system says like, hey, I do remember this, and they start to pick up very quickly. Okay? Your strength and coordination will come back faster than the actual muscle size, so you might feel stronger before you look stronger. Okay, that's why maintenance programs are super important. All right, during the minimum effective dose of training, doing the minimum effective dose of training can help preserve your gains during breaks, injury, recovery, or off season compared to completely rest. All right, so how do we apply all of this in real life? Okay, well, first, there's a difference between tapering and detraining, right? Tapering is a planned reduction in training load before competition. It's controlled and usually leads to better performance. Okay, on the other hand, detraining is more of an unplanned, longer pause where gains are lost. Okay, for athletes, doing cross training can help minimize the effects of detraining, like a swimmer doing cycling or weightlifting in the off season to keep their cardiovascular power up. Okay, if you're coming back from injury, tools like NMES, which is something that we call neuromuscular electrical stimulation, can help maintain or restore muscle activation. Okay, and no matter who you are, athlete or casual lifter or general population, understanding the minimum amount of training you need to keep your gains is super helpful, especially when life gets busy. So the takeaway: be smart, plan ahead, and don't stress too much if you miss a few days. Just don't make it a few weeks. All right, and that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning into this session of on deep training. Okay, remember, your body is adaptable, but it also needs consistent stimulation to keep improving. So train smart, rest wisely, and use what you've learned here to manage your training better. Catch you in the next one. Thank you.